Hi, Trina Wright here from the Wright Robinson Institute, and welcome back to the Evolution of You course. I'm so excited to see you. In today's little lesson, we are going to discuss evolution in a little more detail, how it really plays out, and one of the key components of evolution, and also how evolution and expansion interplay, kind of how are they the same, how are they different. And then we're going to introduce the idea of stories and how we can use our stories to sort of see our own evolution, and some other little cool ideas around that for us to integrate. So that's what's on the schedule for today. And so let's just dive right in. So when we think about evolution, we discovered that learning is a key component of both evolution and expansion. We are innately born learners. We are curious by nature, and we love the idea of understanding ourselves and the world and the meaning of why we're here and what we've got going on. It seems to really be poignant at a certain point of our own awakening to really put some focus and energy into that. And so learning seems to be just this natural drive and desire that's within us. And it speaks to our evolution. It speaks to the fact that we are constantly striving to become more, to be more, to know more, to understand more, to increase the information base that we have to work with, whether it comes from inside of us or something that triggers something from outside of us to then know something inside of us. Because we do know that everything we could ever want to learn comes from inside of us. And so it is really interesting that learning in and of itself will take us to that experience of what it means to evolve our beingness. Some would call it expansion, some would call it evolution. And so what is really the difference? And in particular, why did we choose to call this course the Evolution of You? Well, they are very similar. And I guess when it really came down to it, the evolution of you sounds cool. And it sounds like this process that we can all easily identify with, where we shift and change and morph. And what I think is slightly different about evolution versus expansion, though they are very much the same, is that evolution results in something that's visible. It results in physical shifting, physical changing. Whereas expansion, you can have an experience of an idea or a philosophy, or someone can tell you something and you can feel expanded in your beingness, but there would be really no evidence from the outside. Like it would be an inner, completely solely inner feeling. And of course, those two things are interplayed and connected together, because sometimes an expansion takes us to a new thing inside of our beingness that then takes us to the evolution of that idea, and it plays out into the physicality. So in simplistic terms, I guess that's what we were seeing as the difference, is that evolution ends up resulting in something that's physically visible, that's sort of manifested as physical in our time-space reality. And I'm only saying that because when we think about Charles Darwin and evolution, it was usually those types of things. Whereas expansion is always happening, but it's often inward. So that it's sort of the culmination, the interwovenness of evolution and expansion that really takes us on that journey, on the perfect journey of us. And so it's beautiful to think of those two things together. And learning is at the center of both of them. Often it's in discovering something new, whether it's just thinking a new thought, being presented a new idea, being asked a new question, or the actual, which would fall into the sort of the levels of expansion, though they're both expanding, or whether it's an actual contrasting experience that's in our physicality that takes us to then reaching for a new understanding, a new desire, a new experience. And so they both play so well together. And I guess I just thought it would be fun to sort of play with those, and remembering that these are just concepts. They're yours to play with too. I invite you to consider for yourself what feels like the difference between evolution and expansion, if that's relevant, if there's even any necessity for you to consider those as differences. I think that knowing that we strive to know ourselves is the perfect evidence that we desire to evolve and expand. And the next arena that I wanted to tap into was the idea of stories. And so if you haven't, then I invite you to go and look at the little video on my website at www.wrightrobinsoninstitute.com. If you go to the About Trina link, there's a really cool write-up about how I'm, physical, non-physical expressing myself in the written stuff. But if you click on the video, there is a really wonderful video where I touch on the idea of a story. I take a few moments to tell you a little bit of a story of who I am. And so I thought it would be fun for the course to play with this idea of story, because one of the key ways that we can see our own evolution, that we know that this is true, that we know that there isn't one point of awakening where that we're then forever awakened, is if you just rewind, like rewind 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, 18 months ago, 5 years, 10 years. Like if you were to sink into yourself and revisit those versions of you that you were but no longer are, your evolution would be evident. I mean, you would be able to see it so clearly. You stand in the place that you are, in the version of you that is listening to my voice, that has lined up me to present myself to be this reflection of you because of those experiences, those understandings, those stories that you've told yourself that have brought you to this place. So I think that's a really interesting, cool way to think about story. I love to use stories when they are to my advantage, when they make me feel good, when they pull me to this version of myself that is just yummy and delightful and beautiful and flowing and becoming. And I really value every version of me, every story I could tell about every version of me, because that's how I see them. I see the stories as representing versions. And even if I was to tell you my in the moment story, it's forever changing, because that's part of the evolution. That's part of the evolution expansion, is that I don't stay static. So how can I decide, how can I tell you who I am that is the full representation of me, because it's forever changing? So I love to look back at those versions of me with this sort of love and deep appreciation and complete respect for all that those versions of me experienced, because I know that in that it brought me to this now, and this now is juicy and fun and where all my power lies. So I like the idea of story in the sense of, you could pick, the other cool thing is that you could pick any story of yourself from any given moment, from any given version of you, and tell that story. There isn't one sort of story. I mean, what would it be like to tell the one story that's you? Because if you think about the shape of a diamond, and it's so multifaceted and so intricate, and this, and you turn it in one direction and the sun catches a certain point, and then you turn it in another direction and it catches another point. And so every time the sun catches a slightly different facet of the diamond, its brilliance is illuminated in a different way. Well, that's kind of the same way that you are. So you're the culmination of all your experiences, all your thoughts, all your feelings, all your desires, all your moments, like every single thing that you're part of your consciousness, like your level of awareness, your awakening moments, your in the moment interactions. So it's your physicality and your non-physicality, and all those things combined together. Included with that is all your wants and desires and visions and becoming, and what your next expansion is and where you're going. All of those form the myriad expression of you, like that diamond, multifaceted in a variety of ways. So if you looked at each story as just being the sun shining and reflecting on that individual aspect of you, where whatever story you lead with is going to change the entire vision of you, of the diamond of you. Just like when the sun shines in one part, it illuminates that part and not so much other parts. It changes the way the diamond looks. Well, it's the same thing with you. So as you tell each story from those past versions of you, or from this now moment, that shapes who you show up to be, so to speak. And so I think it's really interesting that could we really tell a story that would capture every single multifaceted version of us in the now moment, let alone the past multiple versions of us and the future possible versions of us. That seems, I mean, they're unlimited, so it seems like it's kind of more like in every moment we're telling the story that best resonates with this now moment. What is the best story I can tell right now that makes me feel the best, helps me with wherever I'm at or whatever I'm doing? So for example, right now, I'm really keyed up with the story of Trina as an entrepreneur, because that's the story that I'm flowing. Trina as comfortable and talking, Trina as a teacher, Trina as, in alignment, in sync, flowing through the energy of the universe to express the fullness of who I am in this little conversation that I'm having with you. So, and I can easily pick and pull and choose essences of stories from my past where I've had experience where that's really flowed. And I love high-flying conversation, and people have been like, wow, that's incredible, and inspired by things that I've said. And so I can tap into that and those stories of me to bring to this present moment and this version of me. And so in that essence, that's the piece of me that I'm highlighting, but it doesn't diminish any of the other pieces. It just makes it slightly impossible to sort of hold them all at the same time because they're infinite in nature. So I think that's a really cool, interesting way to look at ourselves and to look at our own evolution and expansion. It's the multifacetedness of us means that even the areas that we're expanding and evolving in could be different, and where we're choosing to focus the light. And it really helps to remind us of the value of perspective, because perspective is exactly the same thing. Wherever I shine my light on you, whatever parts of you I choose to see is the parts of you that are going to be illuminated, so to speak, are going to have the light and the sun shining on them. And so they're going to seem bigger because that's the part of you that I've chosen to focus on. And so what is the part of you that you want other people to focus on? What is the part of you that you want to see evolving and expanding? I mean, obviously we want to be expanding and evolving beings in every way, and we can do it in multiple ways simultaneously. We can do anything. I mean, we're unlimited beingness. But for simplicity and for the sake of this journey and this process, I would love you to consider those two things. What is the version of you, the story of you that you are putting out to the world most of the time? Just pay attention, non-judgmental, just for the pure fun of it. This is how I live. This is what I do to be that little experimenter. So you put your explorer, get your explorer backpack and put your, get your magnifying glass and become an experimenter yourself. And see if you pay attention, just be awareness in the back seat of your life. Don't think you need to change it right this minute. We're just looking for the information. What is the stories that you tell most about yourself? What is the tone you use? How do you say them? What do you feel when you say them? And what are the words that come out of your mouth most of the time? And just attend to that over the next few days. The other piece is, after you've noticed that, how did you feel in the noticing of it? And I would encourage you to maybe even take notes, write some of this down so that you can see, wow, I told that story a lot of times and I don't know why or whatever. Because remember that whatever we tell, whatever the story of us is that we're putting out there is the basis of what we're asking the universe to line us up with. It's the basis of information about how aligned we are with the fullness of who we really are. And so I think it's a really cool experiment, and I'm sure that you can see where we're going to go, because we want to be intentional about the stories we tell. We're this multifaceted diamond with all these intricate parts to ourselves. So we want to find the parts that are the most brilliant, the most easy to shine the light on, that feel the best with us, so that we can call that attention and get the universe to line us up with more and more and more of it. And that's part of what's going to take us to being able to create the life that we want, which is always running in the background of our trajectory, I know. So this is such a fun process to do. I invite you to engage with it just for, a day or two, whatever it seems like. Maybe you already know what those are, but sometimes in just sinking into that awareness and paying attention really helps you to take it to that new place within yourself. And I will see you in a day or two, and we'll go from there. So have fun with that. Just be playful about it, non-judgmental, easy, flexible. Just be present with yourself and let come up whatever comes up. And know that this is just the beginning. We're not going to leave it there. There's no right or wrong. This is just some information for you to have about you. And it's just diving into the person that you are choosing to be and how you feel about that. So just enjoy the journey.